Well, we're back on dry land for tomorrow's feature film, the story of a seemingly impossible bank robbery starring Albert Finney and Martin Sheen, who discover and exploit the loophole at 9:25 tomorrow. And these are the programmes for the rest of this Christmas Eve here on BBC1. At 10:25, following the news, a festive edition of The Good Old Days. The stars include Roy Castle and John Inman. At 11:15, the story of peace in no man's land, the remarkable truce that took place on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day 1914 on the Western Front, when British and German soldiers laid aside their weapons and hostility to sing carols and exchange greetings and souvenirs. At 11:50, a midnight mass from the chapel of the Convent of Mercy, Strabane, Northern Ireland. Now on BBC1, at 10 minutes past 10, the news with Moira Stewart.
Rescue for Laker Airways. Sir Freddie's given longer to repay his loans. The Pope lights a candle for peace in Poland. Another Polish ambassador defects in protest against martial law. And a day of mourning in Cornwall. Funerals for victims of the Penlee lifeboat disaster. A rescue deal has been worked out to save Laker Airways. With the help of the Bank of England, the airline's creditors have agreed in principle to give Sir Freddie Laker another 12 months to repay a £200 million loan. But there will be redundancies and some of the company's aircraft will have to be sold off. The airline ran into trouble after miscalculations about the exchange rate. Sir Freddie agreed to reorganise his finances and the rescue plan should be confirmed by mid-January. Nick Witchell asked him tonight whether the company's future is now secure.
Yes, I think so. It means all of that, and I can tell you it's quite a relief as well.
Just how near to disaster were you?
Well, I can't put days on it, or weeks on it, or months on it, but we didn't get to the stage where we were going to shut up shop tomorrow morning or anything like that. It was critical. It was critical. I did have to consider and actually worked out a possibility of having a controlled rundown of the business.
Won't there be some people in the airline industry who will regard this rather as Freddie Laker's comeuppance?
We're still in business. We're not going to cut our business to ribbons. We haven't made 9,000 people redundant or anything like that. What happened in my business is a simple situation, and the difference between me perhaps and most other people is I'm prepared to admit when I get it wrong, and I got it wrong.
Poland's ambassador to Japan is now in the United States with his wife and daughter after defecting and asking for political asylum. He's the second senior Polish diplomat in a week to take this step. On Sunday, the ambassador to Washington decided to stay in America. Today, the Japanese Foreign Office quoted Dr. Zdzisław Ruraj as saying that he could no longer represent a regime which denied fundamental human rights. From Tokyo, Bob Friend.
The Polish diplomat took up his post in Tokyo last February. Japan's foreign minister said today that his defection was a protest at military law in Poland and a further indication of the grave situation there. Japanese foreign ministry officials who interviewed Dr. Ruraj say he told them he was thoroughly disillusioned with events in Poland and could no longer represent a government which oppressed the people. Both Dr. Ruraj and his wife are said to be open supporters of the solidarity movement, and it's thought they may have been considering the possibility of defecting for some time.
According to the official information received from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan, Mr. Ruraj has sought and received political asylum for himself and his family in the United States of America. The embassy confirms that at present Mr. Ruraj is out of his residence. The official position of the government of the Polish People's Republic on this case will be made known in due time. Thank you.
In Poland itself, the military-controlled television said tonight that a sit-in strike by coal miners in Silesia has virtually collapsed. It was at a pit in the Katowice area where over 1,000 miners had been staying underground. All but a few have now come to the surface, and experts have been clearing 10.5 tons of explosives. But at another colliery, more than 1,200 were still refusing to come up. Tonight, the country's military leader, General Jaruzelski, in a radio broadcast, denied that hundreds of people have been killed since he imposed martial law. He also said it was untrue that political prisoners were dying of cold in concentration camps. Otherwise, his theme was the need for unity and conciliation among Poles. In Polish television's evening news, the announcer, a Christmas tree at his elbow, reported that General Jaruzelski's activities today included a visit to national servicemen with a mechanized unit stationed in the streets of Warsaw. The soldiers told the general that they'd ensure that the country stays peaceful, and Jaruzelski complimented their officer on their good combat condition and sound discipline. Another of the general's engagements was a meeting with the Pope's envoy, Archbishop Poggi. He handed over a letter from the Pope, and Jaruzelski promised to study it carefully. Lorry loads of food continue to be delivered from the Soviet Union and other socialist countries, the television said. And it showed soldiers standing guard in the cold outside Warsaw, with a background of traditional Christmas music. Crude pressure and disgraceful interference is how the Soviet Union described President Reagan's broadcast last night, in which he attacked the Polish military leadership. The official Soviet news agency...
With BT concerned to maximise profits, what's going to happen to phone boxes like this? In 1982-83, the 76,500 odd phone boxes in the UK lost a staggering £77.4 million. What incentive will BT have to maintain such a heavy loss-making service? Will phone boxes like this simply disappear? Hello? Hello, Mother? Hello? Hello? Well, will they all do a Doctor Who, Frodmans?
I don't think they'll disappear quite like that, but certainly over the coming years there'll be financial pressure on British Telecom to reduce losses from the rural phone boxes. They are safeguarded in the bill, the ones that exist, but I don't think we'll be seeing very many new ones, and the prices may go up.
Is it just the rural phone boxes we should be worried about?
No, I think it's really all phone boxes. Some of the most heavily loss-making phones are in urban areas because of vandalism and things like that.
We have built safeguards, both into the legislation and into the licence, to ensure that what we call the social service obligations, which are not only the phone boxes, these are also the 999 free emergency service, for example, and services to very remote areas should continue.
And what safeguards are there for the phones for people who need them most, like the elderly, the disabled, the housebound, but who can afford them least?
Well, this is, again, the first time in any legislation in our country on telecommunications where we have built in particular requirements for the disabled, the handicapped and the deaf.
British Telecom will be out to make money, so it'll be wanting to cut any losses on those sorts of services. There aren't very many specific safeguards for those types of services in the bill or the licence, and I think unless British Telecom can persuade somebody else to foot the bill, a lot of those services may disappear.
This is the headquarters of the Post Office Users National Council, whose job up to now has been to pounce on BT with complaints from consumers. But this watchdog is in the last few months of its life. It's going to be put down. Under the new system, a new animal, the Office of Telecommunications, Oftel, will appear. It will supervise BT's commercial operations and also be expected to deal with consumers' complaints and represent the interests of telephone users. But will our consumer watchdog become a lapdog?
Well, the good thing about Pounce was that it was purely concerned with the affairs of the consumer. Oftel has to look at not only consumer affairs, but the affairs of BT, other companies in the telecommunications industry, and in fact the whole of the British telecommunications industry itself. And it could quite easily come up with conflicts of interest.
You're, if I may say so, wrong. The main purpose of the board of BT, the board and directors of BT, is to ensure that BT operates efficiently and makes a profit. What the Director General of Oftel has to do is to police the market to ensure that BT does not abuse its position and to ensure that competition develops. At the moment, you can complain to Pounds. Pounds can examine it, take up your complaint with BT, and if BT doesn't want to do anything about it, it can shrug it off. In the future, the Director General of Oftel has powers to give directions.
The Director of Oftel is required under the Act to look into them, but it's not clear what he does once he's looked into them.
Do you know of any consumer watchdog in the country that has the powers that Oftel has? I'll answer that for you. There isn't one, so the answer must be no. Oftel does have real powers, and it will use them.
Kenneth Baker there, the Minister for Information Technology, with assurances for the consumer when British Telecom is privatised. We'll have to wait and see what actually happens. One tangible result already of the moves to break BT's monopoly is the plethora of different phones in the shops. A word of warning, though. The ones with a green disc have been approved for connection to British Telecom's network. The ones with a red triangle have not. They might be built to American standards, and British Telecom could cut you off if you connect one to their network. On now to our Which Report. Do you ever wish when buying a new domestic appliance that someone could tell you how reliable it was likely to be? Well, after a 7-year survey, Which magazine can do just that. Here's David.
There are few things more boring than sitting at home all day waiting for the repairman to call to have a look at the washing machine that gave up the ghost halfway through the rinse cycle, or the freezer that even now is slowly defrosting the